The Vandal versus the Phantom, a very hot topic and one that's been debated since the release of Valorant. Well, thanks to Riot, they actually submitted a dev post, and it's been a hot minute. I'm surprised I haven't seen anyone else talk about it, but essentially it's all the statistics we would ever want comparing these two guns. And by the end of this dev blog post, there's a little bit of a discussion to be had. Does the Phantom need a buff? Is a Phantom buff coming close? Are they even thinking about it? Well, today we're going to answer all that, starting from the top. I am quoting all sources are down below, so let's get into it. Valorant data drop. Phantom versus Vandal. The Valorant data drop, aka the article formerly known as data breach, is back. And this time we're taking aim at an always hot topic of debate within the community. Which rifle reigns supreme? Phantom or Vandal? Well, as you might have guessed, we've got some splaining to do and lots of data to back it up. For this article, our team of numbers wizards, better known as Valorant Insights team, pulled detailed queries from a mix of more than 4 million unrated and competitive matches across all ranks. So let's dive in. Wins for the Phantom, nearsighted. If you find yourself taking a lot of close to medium range gunfights, the Phantom might be your friend or gun buddy, and here we have a little bit of a chart to go over. In this line graph, we see the total number of each weapon's kills broken out by distance in 5-meter increments. Each point on each line represents a discrete distance bucket and its correlating percentage of kills. From this, we saw that a majority of the Phantom's kills occurred within a range of 15 meters, while the Vandal's kills have more consistent arc across all ranges. For reference, 15 meters is about the distance when peeking the corner from the end of attacker's side hallway on Ascent B main to defender's main entrance. Now this itself is extremely interesting. Basically, the Phantom peaks quite heavily at the 5 to 10 and 10 to 15 meter distance range. I mean, the distribution of kill is quite insane, but then they match perfectly from 15 to 20 meters. Both are equal. Then the Vandal starts overtaking the Phantom as the range increases. This is basically what we'd expect to see based off of course, the damage fall off that the Phantom has. Nothing too crazy here. Now the next chart shows the kill distribution a little bit more simply. We can also put these kills into the 3 range buckets we'll be using throughout this article: 0 to 15, 15 to 30, and 30 plus meters. This is where the Phantom close range advantage starts to become more apparent. Nearly half of all Phantom kills took place within 15 meters. Nearly half, dude. While the Vandal still has plenty of stopping power at close range, the Phantom seems to be the short range specialist for a few reasons, and we'll discuss it. The spray and pray. A weapon's spray pattern in a tactical shooter is a complex discussion. First shot accuracy, second shot accuracy, bullet spread, recoil recovery, number of rounds fired, number of hits, etc. all play a part in tracking how efficiently a weapon can get kills while spraying down the enemy team. To simplify this, the Insights team was able to calculate for a weapon spray control using time as a factor. Multi-kills within 5 seconds act as a good real-world proxy for spray control, especially in 3K and 4K situations where aiming, firing, pausing, and resetting your crosshair for each kill would be tough in that time window. This I find really cool. I love how they're basically using like the spray transfer multi-kill. Beautiful. I mean, 5 seconds is also a huge range. But here are some of the graphs, and now we're gonna go over exactly what they mean. So let's start with rank. So this one's very surprising. Basically, for multiple amounts of kills in one instance, the Phantom basically outpaces the Vandal every single time across all ranks. It falls off at the higher rank, but especially at the lower rank, the gold and below, that spray and moving is quite significant actually, a full percent, where the rest not as much. But still, the Phantom edges out the Vandal when it comes to, I guess, multi-kills within 5 seconds. And this is probably massive for a lot of those moments where you're hiding in a corner and then 3 people pass you. If you're using the Phantom, starting with a dink on one of them and then pulling down and spray controlling into all 3 before they have time to react is where you're going to get most of the multi-kills. And being golden below most likely confirms that, or guarantees the fact that they're going to react a little bit slower, allowing you to stack up those multi-kills a little bit more reliably. Spray control by range, multi-kills within 5 seconds. This chart is very interesting. 0 to 15 meters, the Phantom is more consistent and easier to spray control, but then the Vandal 15 to 30 meters beats it out, but barely. but barely. Then 30 meters or more, the Vandal has a little bit more of a substantial lead, but again, not by much. So spray controlling across all ranges are very similar, actually remarkably similar. The dev post goes on to say, in the graphs above, we see how many multi-kills the Phantom and Vandal were each able to rack up within a 5-second time window. Note the percentages do not add up to 100% because we've omitted single kill scenarios from these graphs. And once again, the Phantom reigned supreme in multi-kill situations within 15 meters. This further proves Phantom spray control dominance, as spraying tends to only be effective at short range. We also see that the Phantom performs better in 5-second multi-kill scenarios across all ranks. So whether you're hard stuck iron or trying out for VCT, the Phantom seems like your best choice in close range spray scenarios. Bro called this hard stuck iron. Yikes. All right, don't get close is the next section. Okay, so we know that the Phantom thrives in short range combat, but what about in heads up duels with a Vandal user who takes the title of the short king or queen? This one's so interesting. All right, Phantom versus Vandal duels, lethal engagements. So from 0 to 15 meters in gold and below, the Phantom tends to actually win. From platinum to ascendant, the Phantom tends to win. From immortal and above, the Phantom tends to win. So if you're fighting an opponent who has a Vandal and you have a Phantom, from 0 to 15 meters, if you're going to be playing close up and aggressive, think of your play style, you are statistically more likely to win against an enemy Vandal. But once it goes to 15 to 30 meters, the Vandal jumps in dominance quite strongly. 52% of the time in gold and above. Platinum and ascendant, same idea, much stronger. And then from immortal and above, much stronger. And then 30 meters plus, it becomes insanely stronger. Insanely stronger. Phantom 43%, Vandal 56% in gold. In platinum, it's 44 against 55. And in immortal and above, it's 44 versus 55 again. Meaning, ideally, you should only be picking the Phantom according to Riot statistics if you know you're going to be maybe dashing in, teleporting in, you're initiating, you know you want to take these close range battles more than anything. Similar to a judge. You buy a judge, think of how you're going to play. You buy a Phantom, think of how you're going to play. But the 15 to 30 and 30 plus meter range is just so insane. The difference is massive. It is massive how much stronger the Vandal is at 15 or more meters. Riot goes on to say, this graph shows that Phantom beats the Vandal in close range head-up gunfights. The Phantom's close range supremacy holds true across all ranks, even though this advantage slightly decreases as the rank gets higher. Wins for the Vandal, pick your poison. This is the next section. Riot goes on to say, we wanted to see which rifle players favored and by how much. We had a small hunch that the Vandal would come out on top for this one, and sure enough, it did. For the purposes of this study, we measured players' primary loadout. We defined primary loadouts as the weapon that players purchased in all rounds, excluding pistol, eco, bonus, and OT. We found that players in competitive queue chose the Vandal more than any other weapon in the game as their primary loadout. This is the Phantom versus Vandal pick rate. Boy, yo, in competitive queue, the Vandals picked 76% of the time, and in pro play, 72% of the time. So no matter what, the Vandal is by far the most popular. It is by far the most popular. It is insane. This is about clicking heads though. The next section is clicking heads. Everyone knows there are plenty of ways to get a kill, but more often than not, a headshot will likely make the difference between a kill and an assist. And this is the problem. So if you open this chart, you can see the Vandal doesn't count because the Vandal will always be a one tap to the head no matter the range, but non-lethal headshots by range. So this is how many times you hit the head and they get away. 23% of the time they get away if it's 15 to 30 meters, and once you increase the range, 33% of the time. That is kind of bad. Dude, that means 15 to 30 meters, almost there's a quarter of a chance the enemy you shoot will survive. Take that in. There's a quarter of a chance that the enemy that you shoot will survive. At over 30 meters, there's a 1 in 3 chance that the dude you dinked will survive. That is kind of a wild disadvantage for the Phantom. This is again solidifying the fact that similar to a judge, you have a specific playstyle in mind for the Phantom, while the Vandal's overall statistics and overall use case is just so much higher. Let's go on. Let's see what Riot has to say. All right. So for all of you overachievers out there, headshots are clearly one of the Vandal's strong suits. In this graph, we see the percentage of non-lethal, non-penetration headshots, aka dinks, By range, in case you're wondering, non-penetration means that the shot did not travel through an object. Occasionally, we see non-lethal headshots occur when some of the damage is negated by passing through objects like walls, boxes, or doors. So that's why the Vandal has 0%, because they're not counting ones that go through anything. For the Vandal, the number of times a headshot doesn't kill a target remains consistently 0%. That's because a Vandal headshot does 160 damage at all ranges without penetration. But for the Phantom, the percentage of headshots that don't kill their target rises dramatically at range. Another way to think about this is a what-if scenario. So the team looked at these kind of engagements specifically. What happens after a Phantom does 140 headshot damage to a Vandal player? 78% of the times, you'll win. If you get the first headshot on a Vandal player, 78% of the times you'll win. However, 10% of the times, it's third party, unresolved, most likely means that the Vandal user got away, or 11% of the time, the Vandal wins. Which still means 20%, 1 in 5 chance you'll lose. There's still a 1 in 5 chance you lose after getting the dink with the Phantom. Yikes. The Phantom does 140 damage to players between 15 to 30 meters. These situations are when the damage feels so close to 150 that players really start regretting their purchase and wonder, what if I bought a Vandal? The actual data shows that if a Phantom user manages to do 140 damage on a Vandal user at 15 to 30 meters, around 78% of the time the Phantom will still end up killing the Vandal player. But again, they're looking at it glass half full instead of the other way. 10% of the time means a teammate either comes in as the third party of the fight, or that the fight isn't resolved until later by someone else, resulting in an assist for the Phantom user. The remaining 11% of the time, the Vandal actually manages to turn and kill the Phantom player. This 11% is where if your headshot had done 150 damage, you would have never died. But I still don't like that. I still don't like that, man. I still don't like that. Next up, we have Deadeye. So if the Vandal is getting more headshot kills, is it more accurate weapon? Or does it just do more damage? So next here we have the damage region percent weapon accuracy. So when it comes to the weapon accuracy, the headshot percentage on the Vandal is 17%, while on the Phantom it's 14.97, basically 15%. The upper body is almost identical, which makes perfect sense. And the legs, believe it or not, the Phantom ends up with more leg shots by over 2%, by 2% more. And I assume this is the spray control. The spray and pray ends up having bullets hit the leg a little bit more often. That's what I'm assuming. Now when it comes to the aim down sight, this one I didn't see coming. With the ADS percent, the Phantom ends up dealing a little bit more damage, so more people aim down sight and deal more damage with the Phantom than the Vandal, which I didn't really expect. When it comes to penetration percent, which is armor penetration, it's identical. This is what Riot had to say. These graphs show the overall damage breakdown of each weapon by region, ADS, and armor penetration. We see that the Phantom actually lands more shots to the body and legs than its rival rifle, but the Vandal takes a little bit more off the top with a higher percentage of headshots. This could be because of the Phantom's higher rate of fire and the potential of a non-lethal first headshot. So the players tend to have a wider window to hit more body and leg shots, while the Vandal only needs one headshot to end the duel, with a guaranteed kill. It's safe to assume that the Phantom players probably go for a little bit more than a one tap at most distances, even in ADS, which is likely why the amount of damage during ADS is higher than the Phantom, which is exactly what I said. Armor piercing rounds. How much does armor factor to each rifle's lethality? Well, with light armor, they're basically identical, the Vandal outpacing a little bit in KD, while the heavy armor sees a bit more of a substantial jump, 1.08 KD on the Phantom and 1.12 KD on the Vandal. Riot goes on to say, for a good indicator on real-world performance against armor-wearing opponents, the team compared the KD, kill-death ratio, for each weapon against an enemy wearing equal armor. Example, light armor Phantom user versus light armor enemy, heavy armor Vandal user versus heavy armor enemy, etc. They found that the Phantom performs almost equally as well as the Vandal against light armored opponents, but falls to heavy armored enemies more often than the Vandal user. This makes perfect sense when considering the previous damage region percent graphs. The Phantom typically lands more body shots and non-lethal headshots, which isn't to the greatest of situations against enemy in heavy armor. So buy your armor, folks. The verdict. It's all subjective. If you're consistently clicking heads, the Vandal might be for you. If you're a little bit more of a spray and pray, try the Phantom. Also, what kind of gunfights do you like to take? Are you nearby angle holder and or smoke spammer? Go Phantom. Or do you like the pinpoint of your shots at longer distance? If so, go Vandal. We asked Carson Dohan sorry for mispronouncing, one of our Insight team researchers, for his final word on the topic. This is what he had to say, and I quote, "It really boils down to your playstyle and confidence as a player. When in the heat of a moment using a Phantom, the average Valorant player doesn't think to themselves, as long as they're less than X meters away, I have a slight advantage statistically. If they do, then they've clearly watched their Woojun VOD reviews." Bro, I love that shout out. I love that shout out to a content creator. That is so wholesome. Aw, fucking love that. All right, both the Phantom and Vandal are viable in most situations. As long as you understand how to play the different strengths of each rifle, you'll be fine. Besides, I think the game sense determines a win more than raw accuracy, but that's something that's really difficult to measure. And that concludes the article, and to be honest, my concluding thoughts on that is exactly what I started with. It's just insane that, in my opinion, based off of statistics, the biggest amount of spread is definitely in terms of range. And that statistic blew my mind. The fact that a high amount of ranges, let's say Breeze, where there's a lot of long gunfights, 1 in 3 chance that the Vandal user gets away or the enemy gets away was mind-blowing. A quarter of a chance is another one, and then against the Vandal specifically, 1 in 5 chance. In my opinion, this reads to me almost as proof that if you're picking the Phantom, you're holding close angles, you're playing aggressive, you're staying in their face, you're maybe using smokes so that when you spray through smokes, you know, you're not giving away your position, or using those smokes to push up, etc. The Phantom actually lands in a very specific playstyle, similar to how the Operator, Judge, and countless other weapons do, while the Vandal, in my opinion, is still reigning extremely strong as the best all-rounder. The last thing to say is, will Riot buff the Phantom? Well, no, because it's still a little bit too close to the Vandal, and as long as it can fill that niche of being much stronger at closer ranges, then it's doing its job in place of the game. Just because the Vandal's a better all-arounder doesn't matter too much. If they could ever buff the Phantom, it'd be making it 2850 instead of 2900 or something super trivial where it still doesn't matter, to the point where they might as well not touch it.